Hello, everyone. Welcome back to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. I am your host, Ray Nickens, and I am joined with.
Owen DeChico.
And we are here to celebrate another victory week as the Dallas Cowboys took down the Minnesota Vikings 20-16. On today's show, we will be breaking down some key performance from Sunday night. We will also then discuss how the Cowboys were able to get this victory and cap off the Cowboys week with some information regarding Dak Prescott's calf and give our 2 cents on what we think is going on. Finally, to wrap up the show, we will revisit Escape from Reality after last week's break. There's a lot to get into there, and we are very excited to get into that as well as some Cowboys talk. So let's get right into this episode. Owen, I'll start off the show with this. What players do you think were big contributors to the Cowboys' victory?
Randy Gregory, 100%. I had a injury report on my mind, so 100%. I think Randy Gregory had a really big performance on the getting to the quarterback, and he's really showed that he's deserving of an insane contract, and hopefully Jerry does pay up. But we'll get into that when contract situations are starting to get more popular. I also think that Cooper Rush, he didn't really start off the greatest, but he got better as the game went on. And then I think one of the biggest, I'll go with three. My main three: Amari Cooper, Parsons, and Randy. Those are my three. And then honorable mention, Cooper Rush.
Okay. Yeah, so my lone main performer who impacted the game is Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was quite literally all over the field, and he was a very key reason to why the Dallas Cowboys were able to contain Dalvin Cook. I talked about on our pregame show that I didn't think the Dallas Cowboys were going to be able to contain Dalvin Cook regardless of whether or not Dak or Cooper Rush were playing. I thought that was going to be a very big problem. But the Cowboys, they stepped up and they slowed down Dalvin Cook, and it really neutralized the Minnesota Vikings offense, whether or not that was just because Kirk Cousins did not play well at all, or if it was just because Dalvin Cook is really that important, even though they have two really good receivers on the outside in Jefferson and Thielen. But I do think Micah Parsons had a huge impact on controlling the running game and just making very good, solid tackles. And really, that's one of the things I've noticed about this Cowboys team from teams in the past is that they're really good at tackling, and they don't miss very many tackles. I think last year even what got them into a lot of trouble was they were by the ball sometimes, but they didn't tackle very well. So the 5-yard plays turned into the 30-yard plays. So I really think that Micah Parsons was a huge factor on the defensive side of the ball. And I also think that Cooper Rush, especially in the second half, had a big impact, and especially with that game-winning drive, he really should have thrown an interception on that deep ball. That's not really talked about, is the fact that it bounced off the Minnesota Vikings defender's chest, but he did make a few throws after that. And Zeke, we have to give Zeke some applause. He actually ran through somebody. So thank you, Zeke, for running over somebody. I really appreciate that. We saw Zeke try and hip hop his way past someone in the Tampa game week 1, and from him to go from that Zeke to this Zeke is quite an improvement. Even though he wasn't a huge factor in the game, he was a big factor on that last drive, and he's also the reason why we got the victory. And I would be a hater if I did not mention Amari Cooper eclipsing the 100-yard mark for his second road game as a Dallas Cowboy. He has had double the amount of 100-yard games on the road this year than he has had as a Dallas Cowboy at 2. So congratulations to Amari Cooper for eclipsing that 100-yard mark, and he was a huge impact on the game as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of people who really contributed to this win. I think the offensive line deserves a lot of props for keeping Cooper Rush upright. Tony Pollard is the only person I'm going to give an F because he completely missed that block and it turned into a turnover. So he's the only person I'm going to give an F for this team. or on this team. Maybe I'll give an F to the training staff, but I'll get into why later on in the episode. But those are the people who I think were huge contributing factors to this victory.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you said about last year with the missed tackles, because I think one of Dalvin Cook's biggest runs was where Leighton Vander Esch was probably to Dalvin's left, and he was to Dalvin's left, and he just didn't even try to tackle him. And I was like, Leighton, like you gotta. And then right after that, I texted Ray, and I was like, I will never ever wear his jersey ever again. So I will take fault for Lander or for Leighton missing that tackle, but stuff like that, I don't really understand why it happened, but I think that this win, in all honesty, after Cooper just didn't really play that well, I turned the game off and I was like, I'm not watching. I had to watch this last year. I'm not gonna watch Rush and company just destroy this game and have Kirk Cousins be talked about so highly even when he shouldn't be.
Keep in mind it was only 10-3 at this point.
Well, that is true, but even last year, besides the Washington games or maybe a few others, none of them were really blowouts. I feel like even going back to 2015, which you always remind me of, the games were close. There was just something late at the end that ruined it. And I didn't think with the way that Adam Thielen was playing in the beginning, but then for some reason Kirk Cousins just stopped throwing the ball down the field, which is why I think was a big reason why Dallas won. But after Thielen had that big touchdown, I was like, this game is over. And especially with Greg missing his kick, I was like, yep, this is it. But I don't know. But I think one of the bigger reasons why was the defense. Like you said, even though he had 78 rushing yards, he had a very quiet 78 rushing yards. And I was extremely impressed with how they played.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened to the Minnesota Vikings offense after that first drive, because they were really just taking whatever they wanted, and Adam Thielen kind of cooked Diggs on that touchdown pass, I believe, or it may have been a different route, but he just kind of walked into the end zone, and I was like, man, they're gonna put up 30 points, and I'm not even sad about missing the first half at my intramural game. Like, I'm not even sad. I come back and it's tied 10-10. And I'm very confused on how the Cowboys scored 10 points. And then they showed the highlight of the 77-ish yard touchdown pass to Cedric Wilson, which was a very nice read by Cooper Rush. I think the only really poor read that he made was on the interception where he tried to throw it into quadruple coverage, it seemed like, and it was intercepted. But other than that, it seemed like the Vikings, they were being very conservative on defense. I don't really know why they were being conservative. If it were me, I would have just blitzed the heck out of the Cowboys through the kitchen sink at Cooper Rush, try and get him to make completely horrendous decisions, but they weren't really blitzing him at all. And when you have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin, even Cedric Wilson, all out there catching passes, it's really hard for your secondary, which is not the greatest secondary by any means. They're worse, but they're also a lot better than the Minnesota Vikings. They're not going to be able to stay with the Cowboys receivers. So it kind of really shows what a lot of people are thinking. I've been thinking for a little bit, and this is no fault to Dak by any means. But really, if you find any competent quarterback with the brain, if you give him protection that the offensive line gave him, and you have the receivers on the outside, and the defense is not blitzing you, then they can sit back there and make those reads and complete those 10-yard curl routes that he was throwing down the field and have decent success. So it gives me confidence that the Cowboys, they can win 2 or 3 games if they need to, if Dak needs to miss some time. Whereas if they would have been blown out by 30 and Cooper Rush would have had 4 interceptions, then I probably would not be here having that opinion. But it's the difference that I think from last year. This is kind of a tangent, but also kind of transitioning into our next segment of why they actually won is the Cowboys' offensive line was pretty pathetic last year after they lost Tyron Smith, and Lyle Collins was out the entire year with a hip injury, and they had Travis Frederick was gone; he had retired. So they had a lot of
Zach Martin missed some time. Too.
Zach Martin was gone. They had a lot of new faces on the offensive line that shouldn't have been out there at the time. Terrence Steele is really the most improved player from that offensive line, and they weren't giving Andy Dalton very much time. Ben DiNucci, we don't even need to discuss him. He is an outlier. He was just bad from the beginning. And then really Garrett Gilbert is the only quarterback who showed promise against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like we said earlier, we don't really know why the Cowboys cut Garrett Gilbert, but I guess it doesn't really matter because Cooper Rush got the victory. So I think the differences from last year's offense to this year's offense is the offensive line. And I think if they can stay healthy, then they can really take their time making sure that Dak Prescott is actually healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the throw to Cedric kept Cooper Rush in that game. I feel like if he continued to play poorly, that they would have put Will Greer out there because Cooper Rush did not play well to start the game off at all. And I was just thinking while you were saying that, I think the biggest reason why they picked Cooper Rush is because he was more he knew the offense better because he'd been with the Cowboys for so long. He was either an undrafted free agent or the Cowboys drafted him. I forget. And they cut him a few years ago. So he's been around the team probably a year or two less than Dak. And the offense, I think just a small little tangent that we can move on. I think the biggest reason why Dak has been so successful is because when you look at quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and a few other ones who are young and on bad teams, they have a new offensive coordinator every single year, which hurts their development. And Dak he played with Kellen Moore, so even when he was a rookie, Kellen Moore was number 2 on the depth chart, and Dak was 3. And the only reason why Dak played more was because sadly Kellen Moore broke his leg. So Dak and Kellen have been friends and have been around each other since 2016, which is the main reason why their relationship is so great, and the reason why they trust Dak so much, and a big reason why Kellen Moore isn't a head coach for a college team or a high school team or an offensive coordinator for a team that may be better than Dallas or have a better position than he has for Dallas. But yeah, that's I think all that I have on that. But I think that the whole everyone played well, and I don't know if I think that rookie quarterbacks that are thrown in, we after they have a big game, we kind of say, oh yeah, they're gonna be great. Like Mike White, if he has a big game on Thursday, I think it is. If he can continue this, I'd be like, okay, like he can be a decent quarterback from here on out. But this was Cooper Rush's first game, so this may have just been like his best game ever. And for all we know, he could, if he has to play somewhere else or play for Dallas next week, he could stink it up, and then everything about just a plug and go quarterback is going to be gone. Because last year when Dak went down, even before Dak went down, I don't know if Ray was joking, if he was being serious. He was like, yeah, like put Andy Dalton in there. Like I'd much rather have Andy Dalton in there. And then I was like, you'd save a lot of money, but and as we saw, Andy's best game, in my opinion, was the quarter and a half that he had to play against the Giants, and he got concussed and didn't really have the best of luck. But he didn't look good out there. No quarterback that they put out there looked good besides Garrett. And for all we know, if Garrett had to play more than one game, he could have stunk too. But I also think that, a question for you, do you think that Dallas was as efficient on offense as they have been in the past with Dak just this year?
Absolutely not, but that's because they didn't have the entire playbook to Cooper Rush's disposal. They were playing they were playing a very they were playing a very conservative portion of the playbook. They weren't doing what they would do with Dak Prescott, who is being paid a lot of money to play quarterback. So they're not running those deep shots every time. A lot of the plays that the Cowboys were running were a lot of run. They ran the ball a lot, and then they were throwing those 10-yard outs or 10-yard ins or 10-yard zone beaters where Cooper or CD, they'd find holes in the zone. So they were not as structurally fine tuned as they would be with the Dak Prescott, but they were, or I guess efficient as you said, but they were what they needed to be to win the game. So that's what I'm trying to get to get across. And you talked about the last year's performance of the quarterbacks without Dak Prescott, and that's what happens when you don't have the offensive line that you expect to have, because I would like to see. I mean, I saw Andy Dalton for what he was with the offensive line that was protecting him. So who knows? Maybe if Andy Dalton's the quarterback this year, and we have Tyron Smith healthy and Zach Martin healthy and Terrence Steele playing a lot better than he was last year, and Lyle Collins, who played some snaps but not a lot of snaps. Maybe Andy Dalton looks a little bit better than he did last year. Who knows? We have no idea. But I just think that when you give a quarterback time, even a backup quarterback time, then they can do a set out job that's set out for them. It's all about not putting that backup quarterback in a position that he's not comfortable with. With the starting quarterback, you have a lot of confidence that you can put that he can get in any situation and be able to get out of that situation. With the backup quarterback, you don't necessarily have that confidence. You're game planning exactly to make sure that he is okay. And I mean, it worked out because the Vikings for some reason didn't blitz him a lot. But so we'll see what he looks like next week. Von Miller's not on the Broncos anymore, so it's going to be a little bit easier. So
Zimmer's known for his blitzing too, right?
Yeah, I think Mike Zimmer might have or underestimated what he was expecting. I think I don't know if he underestimated. It's kind of hard to underestimate someone who's never started a football game yet.
Well, even like we can get into that now. Just like a report came out that Cooper Rush was told on Thursday that he was going to play, and that was all mind games for Dallas, so that they didn't so that the Vikings couldn't game plan for Rush. So maybe that was it. Just like when Russell Wilson got hurt, and then Geno Smith went out there and looked great because they didn't game plan for him. And now, besides this past weekend when he won, he hasn't really looked all that great. So maybe it was just not game planning for him. But Dak's supposed to play next weekend. Tyron Smith is not going to play next week. So, we'll get into that next episode, but I think what's going to happen is that they're going to move Lyle Collins to left tackle because he played left tackle at LSU. So,
yeah, I think I really don't know how hard it would be to throw a game plan out there in a split second for a backup quarterback, especially one who hasn't started a football game. So I really don't. I think there were some mind games going on, but I just don't know why they wouldn't blitz him very much. Because I mean, like you said, he didn't start off that great, and he kind of settled in, and it doesn't really make sense why they wouldn't put some pressure on him. Even in that last drive, they were putting very little pressure on him, and it seemed a little bit odd. But I'm glad they didn't do it because the Cowboys won. So
yeah. I
mean, if the Broncos don't want to blitz Cooper Rush, if he ends up playing, then don't blitz Cooper Rush. I completely will allow you not to blitz Cooper Rush.
So here's the next thing we talk about is why each of us think Dallas won, what specific things, and instead of players, we can talk about like big picture things. So I think that I texted Ray this, putting pressure on Kirk Cousins is the best thing you can do because he made some really bad throws that were just intentional grounding, throwing it out into the stands. Like he did not look good whatsoever, which is people game plan for Kirk by just putting pressure on him. Because he'll always have big stats, and if you don't watch him, if you just look at the Vikings at the end of the season, oh my goodness, he has 4,000 plus yards. He's top 5 or top 10 in passing yard, but that never equates to anything. And he didn't look all that great after the first drive when he hit Thielen. I don't know, the beginning of the game was very bad for Dallas, that first drive. Justin Jefferson was only targeted 4 times. I think that's the big reason why Dallas won. Last week I said, or for the pregame, I said either one of them is going to go off, Adam or Jefferson. You can't let both of them go off. And Justin never got a chance to because he was kind of injured, but I don't really know what was going on with there. And that's things that I think kind of won them the game. Obviously, stuff we talked about before with Dalvin Cook not really playing all that well, and the defense playing well and Cooper Rush going off. But those were kind of the things that we didn't talk about that I thought were essential to Dallas pulling out the win.
Yeah, just to quickly talk about Justin Jefferson, I think what the turning point of the game was when Kirk he had Jefferson wide open on the right side on a streak, and it looked like Jefferson, he pulled up a little bit, wasn't expecting the football, and he just missed him. And I think if they had connected there, Jefferson would have walked in for a touchdown. He would have had 60 yards added to his stat sheet, and it might have been a completely different game because I think the Cowboys would have been down 14-0 at that point, and it could have been a route from there. So I think that was a huge turning point in the game. That missed throw on third down, I believe it was, that kind of swung the momentum a little bit. So, but I think, and I do this too sometimes with Kirk Cousins, because I think that Kirk Cousins is not a terrible quarterback. I think he's a little bit above average quarterback, but it baffles me because when you look at the tape, and I remember, and I saw this live in the game, I saw Thielen going over across the field on a mid route, wide open, and he would have caught the ball and probably run for an additional 15 or 20 yards. But Cousins, he throws the check down to, I don't even think it was Dalvin Cook. I think it was like
Madison.
It was Madison or something, and it was incomplete, and they punted the football. And I'm like, how do you not just see Adam Thielen running wide open? There was literally nobody else could have made the play except for Adam Thielen, unless he just overthrew him horribly or threw behind him horribly. So you
go.
No, what did he say?
No, he was asked today or yesterday, whenever like the big press conference was, and he said that he wishes that he had those deep throws back because, like you just said, he missed them. So I think that was a really good take by you. You hit the head on the, whatever the saying is.
Nail on the head.
Yeah, that one. It's been a long day.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think Kirk Cousins is not bad. He has beaten Drew Brees. He did come up big in a playoff game. He just needs to figure it out. And at the end of the year,
to figure it out.
At the end of the year, he's going to have around 4,400 yards, around 30 touchdowns, and around 10 interceptions, and it's going to look great. And if, like you said, if you really don't look very hard, you think that's top 10 quarterback worthy numbers. So, I think the Vikings are a pretty good football team, and they may or may not be able to turn it around, especially with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to miss this week's Thursday night game, testing positive for COVID, so they could potentially get a game back from the Packers this week. Yeah. But we'll see in that regard. But I think another reason why the Cowboys were able to win the game is their defense did not let Minnesota capitalize on the 2 turnovers that they gave up. One of those turnovers was early on in the game where Cooper Rush threw that interception, and they ended up stopping the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings had to punt. And then I believe it was in the second half. Tony Pollard, like I said, the only the only player on the Cowboys team who is going to be getting an F this week, he missed. He completely missed a block, and Cooper Rush got destroyed and fumbled the ball, and Vikings recovered. And 3 or 4 plays later, they did not. They had to punt the ball again. So I think that was crucial. They didn't let the mistakes given by the offense turn into Vikings points, and that really kept the game within striking distance for them to win. And then finally, I think really, and then also just they got some help from their leaders. Ezekiel Elliott, he came up big. I talked about that earlier. He came up big on the last drive, running through, getting that first down. Because if he doesn't get that first down, then the Cowboys are kicking a field goal, and it's going to be an overtime, I believe. That would have made it OT 16. Yeah, 16-16. And it could have been a completely different outcome. Kirk Cousins could have found rhythm and scored a touchdown for all we know. So that was just a huge play by Zeke, fighting for the first down. And then Cooper Rush hitting Amari Cooper on that fade route was really key. There were some reports that it should have been a run play, but I don't care. It ended up with a touchdown, and it was a great throw, and it was really good to see our backup quarterback make a throw like that in that situation, because it's very easy for him to underthrow him and then it's intercepted. And that's like, well, it's the backup quarterback. We'll get next time. But the fact that he was able to come through in that moment, get that game-winning drive, that the come from behind victory, it was very good to see, and it gave me a lot of promise and a lot of excitement for next week, especially with the Cowboys still only having one loss on their resume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. But transitioning from that, fun fact, apparently Micah Parsons has been the play caller, the defensive play caller, and they moved it to Curse. So Curse called the plays last week, and Micah said that he likes it a lot better because he can just focus on playing. And it's a lot to ask of a rookie, especially a middle linebacker, which is like people say the quarterback of the defense, to be your best tackler, be your best everything, and then call the plays. So I think that this move was definitely good. And even Micah said this was his best game of the year so far, which I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting, because that's quite a lot to put on a rookie to be calling defensive plays, first year learning the defensive system. So I do think that was a great move by Dan Quinn, or I don't know if Jerry maybe called down to Dan Quinn and was like, hey, we need to have a veteran calling the defensive plays and let Micah just run around and make tackles. But whoever made that decision, I applaud you for making the decision, because the defense looked a lot better this week than it has looked all year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they weren't giving up those huge plays. They stopped the run. They didn't get any turnovers. They didn't force any turnovers, but they stopped the Vikings from doing pretty much anything on offense. And that was really exciting to see. So I'm glad that they made that adjustment coming off the bye, and hopefully it pays off in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the funniest plays, remember last year when Donovan Wilson destroyed Cook and he fumbled when they played last year? So a play this week, they met at the line and Donovan he destroyed him, and there were a lot of tweets. They were like, someone please tell me that Donovan and Cook have some beef, because the amount of times that Donovan is destroyed him or is uncalled for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure Dalvin Cook does not like to wake up that Monday morning seeing all those tweets and memes. I think he would much rather have it being the opposite.
Yeah, it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
So a little trade deadline for me personally, it ended yesterday. Not Dallas didn't do anything. Dallas has done things the past 3 years, I think. Maybe they've made at least one trade the past few years.
Hmm.
They did not. They put Jabril Cox on IR, which upsets me dearly. If anyone doesn't know who he is, he was the one who concussed Daniel Jones, number 14 linebacker, ex LSU, ex another college, I think.
Do we know
Missing
why
him,
he's on IR?
he tore his ACL.
When did he do that?
Last week. I have no idea. I didn't see the play, which is really sad because
Did he tear? He tore his ACL against Minnesota.
yeah,
Oh well, that's not good.
no, he didn't really play all that much. He was more of a special teams guy, but that's really gonna stunt his development, and he'll come back better next year. And I'm sure he'll play more next year. But Ray especially and I were very high on him when the Cowboys drafted him. I did not expect him to fall to Dallas in the fourth round. And Bradley and Nye was cut, and many people are saying that it's because of his special teams blunder, but it's mainly because Dallas has four of their main contributors coming back soon. D-Law he hasn't been designated to return yet, but he was practicing on the resistance cords. Gallup's coming back. Tristan Hill, who is not a fan favorite, he is coming back, and Neville Gallimore is coming back. The Cowboys right now have 3 open spots on their roster, and hopefully a Nye can be brought back on the practice squad. But I think it's crazy that D-Law, who is you're definitely a top 2 pass rusher outside of Randy. Randy's been playing really well, but D-Law is definitely your best run defensive end. Gallup, who is number 1 wide receiver on another team, if like any other team basically, and Hill coming back is another rotational defensive tackle, and Gallimore, Hill's a defensive tackle, and Gallimore, who is from OU, who played really well last year at times. And my main question is, do the Cowboys have plans to re-sign Gallup? Because maybe this is too Madden mindset of me, but usually teams that have good players that don't plan on re-signing them, they'll usually trade them before the deadline. And I heard reports that Dallas is going to be their main priority for the offseason is to re-sign their guys. So maybe in some reality, a good one, Gallup will have a star on his helmet next year. But
I really think that it depends on. I think it depends on the what happens this second half of the season. I said before the year that I thought that either Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup are going to be on another team either by the trade deadline or by next season, because I made the point that Cedric Wilson had a lot of great plays last year before he got hurt, and that really they have a lot of talent at wide receiver. And I really think it's unnecessary for them to try and sign Michael Gallup to this long-term huge contract when they've been getting a lot of really great substance from Cedric Wilson. So I think really what they're going to see is they're probably going to rotate Cedric Wilson and Michael Gallup when he comes back and kind of give them both an opportunity to play out the season. And then they're just going to reevaluate in the offseason and say, which one do we think is more valuable to us? And then the other one is probably going to be gone. I don't really know when Cedric Wilson's contract is.
It's up to, I believe.
Okay.
He was drafted in 2017 out of Boise State.
Okay. So one of them is going to have to be paid to stay. So I think really they're just going to have kind of a trial. They're going to have tryouts as.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have tryouts.
Because Godwin, I think he got franchise tagged. He's gonna be a free agent. Gallup's a free agent, so both of them are definitely gonna get paid. It just depends on who's gonna be cutting the check. But yeah, Dallas has a lot of people to bring back. I hope that Jaron Kearse is at least top 5 on their priority list. I really wish that Dallas paid Randy this past offseason because the longer they wait, the more he's going to get paid. And Dallas, the only time that they've been ahead in paying someone and it's worked out was with Lyle, and even that hasn't worked out too well. But with Jalen, who was cut, hopefully he'll find the team soon. That contract didn't work out, and I feel like Dallas is always behind the eight ball on, or in recent history, on behind the eight ball in bringing back their own guys.
Yeah, I mean the good thing is with this last draft, they really did a great job of finding talent that they can use right away. I think that was one of the reasons why they were comfortable letting go of Jalen Smith was because they brought in Micah Parsons and they had Jabril Cox as well, and then they signed guys. They signed guys like KZ and the guy that you just Curse. Yeah, they signed Curse as well. So they really felt comfortable with the guys that they brought in and drafted, and especially with the defensive line. They didn't really make a lot of huge adjustments on the defensive line. It's Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, and
Basham, who hasn't really played all that.
Basham. So I really think, and when it comes to wide receiver, just to go back on that a little bit, I think at this point, it would be the Cowboys are fine with either one of those players, Cedric Wilson or Michael Gallup. It's just not going to be both of them. So
and then you also have you go.
Yeah, and I think you're about to mention Noah Brown also, who he had some big.
Also a free agent.
Yeah, he had some nice catches last week also.
I think he was also out of 2017. And then you have Simi Foco, who for some reason next season, so what, the 2022 season of Madden, he's just the best wide receiver ever. He does a whole bunch of jet sweeps. He's not the fastest guy, but I guess that's just Madden being dumb. But I hope he'll still be able to play. He's a healthy scratch every week, and any guy out of Stanford is going to have a lot of football IQ, and he's quite the tall athlete. So hopefully at some point in time this year or next year, he'll be able to get some playing time and show that he can be a fifth or a good fourth wide receiver.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe the Cowboys will have to bring in the Joker to conduct those tryouts. Just to shout out to Heath Ledger's Joker. Exactly. Rest in peace.
That was a good one. There were a lot of memes on that one, and the Cowboys had so many free agents. Also, OBJ may be a free agent, and he was saying how much he loves AT&T Stadium. So if the Cowboys get OBJ.
Yeah, well, see, I'm very much on the mindset of free Odell from the from the horrendous disaster that is Baker Mayfield. But I would not like to see Odell Beckham Jr. with the Cowboys. I think he just needs to go somewhere where he's the number one guy and he's going to get all the targets so he can get all the receptions and yards that he wants and make fantasy owners like me who invested a draft pick in it and him happy.
That'd be pretty great, though, if he wore – he can't wear 13, but if he wore some number and had a star on his helmet, that would be pretty great. I think that would – I don't even know if the Rams can stop that offense.
No, I don't. I really don't think anyone could stop that offense. It would just we would just have to see if the offense stopped themselves. That would be the situation that we would get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to transition on that note, on the Odell Beckham Jr. note, let's move right into Escape from Reality. There was quite a lot of Escape from Reality topics to get into. Some great, some not so great. But I'll just start off with my three. I might be taking Owens. We didn't talk about our Escape from Realities before the show, but I'm just going to get in there and steal this one from him immediately and go with Mike White. Mike White, that wonderful human, he made a lot of Jets fans very happy last weekend, where he became the first Jets quarterback to eclipse 400 yards in a very, very long time. And you have to go way back to find the last Jets quarterback to accomplish that. And I'm sure Owen Googled it. I did not Google
I
it.
did not.
So as I continue talking about Mike White, I will Google that right now. But what I think was really impressive about Mike White's performance is that he had those two interceptions back to back, but he didn't let that ruin the game. He stuck with it, and the Bengals ended up being the team to make the mistake, and they tried to get cute and run a run pass option, and the defensive lineman, don't really know what his name is. I'm sure our producer Nick knows exactly who that is. Jumped up and intercepted Joe Burrow, and they ended up getting a touchdown on the very next play. And it was that was it after that. So quite sad for the Bengals to join the Dallas Cowboys as a far superior team to lose to the New York Jets. But at least we didn't lose to Mike White. So that's all I have to say regarding that. But the next thing I'll go into from last week is quite interesting. I'm going to go with the Giants and the Chiefs. And
Good one.
The reason why I'm going with this one is because the Giants, their defense actually showed up and came to play. They looked a little bit more like the defense that we saw last year for the Giants when they kind of made a little bit of a push at the end to try and steal a playoff spot from the Washington football team. But I really think what that game kind of told me, and I've been kind of holding out hope that Daniel Jones could be a decent quarterback, because I like competition in the NFC East, but Daniel Jones is just not it. I mean, the Chiefs are not a very good they have an atrocious defense this year, and even with the Giants having receivers out and not at their best, they weren't 100%. Saquon Barkley wasn't in the game. He had a chance at the end to get a touchdown and to get the Giants that victory at the end, and he just wasn't able to do it, and the Chiefs escaped. And Patrick Mahomes did not play very well once again. Was a really disappointing fantasy acquisition for the second week in a row. But I was disappointed in Daniel Jones, and it's not, the NFC East is terrible, guys. So even if the Cowboys were to fall off a cliff, then they'd still win the division.
The Eagles may be able to trade for Russell Wilson with their 3 draft picks this year.
We'll see. That is a very great point. Unfortunately, the trade deadline is.
Well, in the off season.
Yeah, that would be quite exciting.
Yeah.
And for the last one that I have, the last escape from reality, is quite honestly the Tennessee Titans. They suffered a very sad loss with Derrick Henry fracturing or breaking a bone in his foot. He's going to be out for a significant period of time. So their workhorse, Derrick Henry, he's not going to be there. And we're going to get to see who the Titans are on offense. If Ryan Tannehill can carry them, we'll get to see that in the next few weeks. But Carson Wentz, he had a solid start to the year. Wasn't turning the ball over much, and then the wheels just came off last week. He made a completely ridiculous decision where he threw an interception at the line of scrimmage, tried to turn a busted play into a home run hitter and threw it right to the defensive lineman who picked it off. And then at the end of the game on that last drive in OT, I believe it might have been to force OT, he had a check down running back wide open, and he decided to throw it into triple coverage down the field, and that was also intercepted. So it really just shows that Carson Wentz is still in his head. I think he's a very talented quarterback still. He showed that even that game where he was playing very well up until the fourth quarter. He just has this problem where he thinks that he needs to do the unthinkable. So I think as soon as he kind of figures out that he can't do that every time, I think he's going to be fine. But until then, the Colts are just going to have another disappointing season, and quite honestly wish that they could have kept Phillip Rivers from retiring for just one more year.
Yeah, that is very true. I saw something about Carson Wentz where the whole team, like the front office isn't even sold on him yet, which is kind of crazy because they've invested so much in his contract and the first round pick or second round pick, but it's very, very disheartening.
Yeah, and just a quick thought: Vinny Testaverde was the last Jets quarterback before Mike White to throw for 400 yards passing. So there's your fun fact of the day.
What year was that?
2000.
Oh, very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. Well, yeah, I liked your three. So you stole Mike White from me, but I still have two more. No, sorry. That's my third one. Steelers Browns. Oh my, Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry. I watched that game just because I was like, I have work in a little bit. I'm gonna try to watch a little bit of football to de-stress and get ready for 4 hours of calling people. And I only got to watch the little bit of it. Baker Mayfield is gonna Baker. I don't know why that man is so liked. The amount of money that he has in endorsements and television commercials, he doesn't need to get paid. No team needs to pay him. He can work on minimum wage, and he'll be more than, or the veteran minimum, and he'll be more than fine. I don't really know who lost that game. Baker missed some throws, but Jarvis fumbling and dropping some key passes in the end of the game really, really hurt as a fan who's an unbiased fan to watch that game. And my last is the Patriots beating the Chargers. After the Chargers beat the Chiefs a few weeks ago, right? And that's when people were really talking about them. Or they beat a good team.
Chargers did beat the Chiefs, yes.
And everyone was like, yeah, the Chargers are going to be great and all this. They're 4-3 right now, I believe. And looking at the stat sheet, I was like, okay, how many picks did Herbert throw? And I was like, I saw he threw two, and then I had Ray's internal voice in my head being like, well, was it a drop pick or was it a bad throw? So the first one was a little high to Austin Eckler, but Austin dropped it and went through his hands, kind of like Leonard Fournette week 1 coming into Trayvon Diggs' hands. And the second one was a pick six. It was the tight end was supposed to be like a, I don't know what the name of the route was, but he didn't look at the ball and he didn't look for it, and kind of like the AJ Green throw, but the corner took it back for a touchdown. So I don't know whose fault that was, but Chargers are now 4-3, and who's at the top of that division? It's the
the Raiders.
Who's the top of that? Right? Wow. Yeah. Our Bengals and the Ravens are in a different division, but wow, the Raiders. That's insane. Those were my three, and yeah, I have a question for you before we move on. Out of the past month, the past 4 games, so the Panthers game, Giants, Patriots, and Vikings, what was your favorite October Cowboy moment? You can do one from each game, or you can just do one overall.
I think, honestly, my favorite Cowboy moment. Let's see. I didn't catch much of the Giants game.
You missed out on a horrendous game, that one.
I'm gonna go with the fade to Amari Cooper from Cooper Rush. That just made my heart very warm. Because other than Dak Prescott filling in for Romo back in 2016, I still have a little bit of hatred for that. That was the first time a backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys have made quite a great throw and really contributed to the Cowboys' success. So that's probably my favorite moment of the last month. Is seeing Cooper catch a touchdown from his buddy the Ginger Cooper Rush.
Amari Cooper posted a picture, and for the caption it was Amari Cooper rush, and I was like, good one, nice play on words.
Mhm.
So one final thing that I want to talk about, and then if Ray has to comment, that's great. So after Sundays are kind of, or Mondays are kind of the worst days of the week for me, with school wise, and also ever since I can remember, whenever I watched the Cowboys, if they lost, Monday was the worst day of the week for social media. But if they won, it was kind of a mixed bag. So this past Monday, before class, okay, well, I haven't seen, like you said, you were like the boys, like with NFL IG memes. I haven't seen that one yet because they haven't lost since week one. And I was looking at Stephen A. Smith, his page, and he said that the Cowboys are the NFC team to beat. And I wouldn't say all that. I don't. They're definitely not the most talented team, but you and me can, or Ray and I can kind of figure out who the top 5 teams are in their ranking. But for me personally, my ranking are Rams number 1, Bucks at 2, Packers at 3. But with Rodgers being hurt, who knows how that's going to happen. Cardinals at 4 and Dallas at 5. That's my top 5. No other team even touches them outside of those 5. So there's things as of next week. It's gonna change. Packers are probably number 5 because Aaron Rodgers he's gonna be in a bit of trouble because he's not vaccinated, so he could be out for 2 weeks, 2+ weeks. He took this he via his doctor, he took like this not vaccine thing to like fill up his antibodies or whatever, and the NFL said no. But he's if you're unvaccinated, you have to wear a mask. Rodgers hasn't worn a mask, so he should have been suspended or fined. And I think the NFL has this cloud of players who are untouchable, like Rodgers, Mahomes, a few others, running backs, wide receivers, and you can't fine him and you can't suspend him because they're going to lose money. But something definitely bad's going to happen in Green Bay, and it could definitely derail their season unless Jordan Love out of NC State, some state.
I think it was not a very
Yeah,
I don't. We'll have to Google that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna put the Cowboys a little bit higher than you. Shocking, I know. I'm gonna have the Rams at 1, especially with them getting Von Miller, and then I'm gonna have the Bucks at 2. I'm gonna put the Cowboys at 3, and then I'm gonna have the Cardinals at 4, even though they flunked against the Packers, and then I'm gonna have the Packers at 5 because, like you said, they're going to have a Jordan Love problem for the next few weeks. But I ultimately don't think it won't be an issue because they're still going to make the postseason. And the Cowboys are still probably going to have to play them in the postseason.
Yeah.
And in the recent future, that has not ended very well for the Dallas Cowboys.
And also, Saquon Barkley was diagnosed with COVID too. So I think at Rodgers all over the internet with his John Wick costume, I think part of the reason why he got it was part of the reason why a few players are going to get it is because they were out this past weekend, and Rodgers not being vaccinated but having this, like, he said he was immunization. He had an immunization, but it wasn't like an FDA approved. It was nothing. It was just like a doctor remedy that he told him to take to make him feel better. But I'm not going to get into the whole vaccine thing. But yeah, it could definitely hurt their season because Devontae Adams, he should be coming back. And they didn't trade for a tight end, even though Robert Tonyan tore his ACL. And if they got Evan Ingram, I'd be like, okay, they are definitely the team to beat because Ingram, he's never been used well for the Giants. He's a wide receiver in a tight end's body, can't block to save his life. But they definitely did not do well by not getting him. I have a very different idea on the Von Miller trade. I think that the Broncos won that trade by a mile. And I think the Rams, if the Rams don't win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, let's say, they have no future. their cap space is diminishing day by day, and they have no draft capital. So unless they plan on trading Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey, if this doesn't work out, they're going to be one of the worst teams in that division in the next 4 to 5 years.
The thing is, I don't think the Rams really care, because if
They
they cared about long term, they wouldn't be trying to win now. But I mean, I have no problem with them trying to go for the 3-year dominant streak. Especially with them moving to LA, they're trying to get that early splash in, and I have no issue with it. I think it's actually going very well for them. They got out from under Jared Goff, and now they're with a competent quarterback. Matthew Stafford is in sunshine. He's enjoying the beach, warm weather, and
enjoying Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp's enjoying Matt Stafford too, because that man is completely Matthew Stafford has unleashed Cooper Kupp to the NFL, and the NFL defenses are suffering.
Yeah.
So
Deshaun Jackson just got waived, so who knows what's really going to happen over the next few days. A lot of cuts are going to be happening, so it will indeed be interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this Broncos game. I don't really know what they're going to do. Players today, I think, were like they got half a practice. They practiced for a little over an hour just because they played a night game. So Mike McCarthy gave them some time off. But Mike McCarthy has definitely gotten better over the past few weeks, and I think he deserves a lot of praise for what he's done, getting this team ready and putting them in a position to win with Cooper or Rush. But hopefully he continues to succeed, and hopefully this team can just keep on working.
Yeah.
Even one thing, then you can go. Des Bryant commented on this story. I don't know if anyone listening heard this. When Cooper Rush, when Kellen Moore called the play to the fade to Amari, Cooper Rush was telling the play, and CD wanted the touchdown. He was, and all like he always says, there's 3 of us, and any one of them can take over a game. And when Cooper, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, Amari Cooper. I heard the same same story.
Exactly.
Amari Cooper. He said, "HG double hockey sticks. Hell no.
Exactly.
You're not touching my route." Which I love that. It makes me. It completely changes my not 5 year, but 2 or 3 year opinion of Amari Cooper that he's soft, because he could have easily just said, "Oh, whatever, you can have the play. I don't really care." But I mean, it shows leadership from Amari Cooper, because CeeDee Lamb had just botched 2 drops before, and it's a little bit concerning, because CeeDee Lamb wanting the fame, waving goodbye to the Patriots, to Jalen Mills, showing all the signs of that hotshot wide receiver that you don't necessarily want. So I think it was nice that Amari Cooper kind of put him in his place and flexed his wide receiver 1 ownership that he still has, and then he backed it up and made the play. So yeah. I really like to see that.
Yeah, and Des Bryant commented on it, and he said that this is the closest Cowboys team that he's seen forever. And he said when he was there, none of the players were this close to each other. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. CD, it's all concentration. I think that whenever he gets it in those situations, it's usually on like crucial 3rd and 8. So he's always looking to get the yard after catch. He'll get better. He has, if his worst issue is dropping a ball or 2 a game, that's fine. But Josh Allen, he waved goodbye, and Lamb also got choked out by Harrison Smith. If they do not get fines, it's an issue. I don't, and Josh Allen did it to the whole team. So I personally think that it was funny that the NFL kept on posting the CeeDee Lamb wave, and they ended up fining him. It was pretty ironic, but I don't understand this whole officiating thing. And apparently Mike McCarthy every week goes over with the team what to do and what not to do to get fined. They review tape of the official, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean the NFL knows what they're doing, and they're always looking for that extra money. So
Yeah, of course.
it's always something that the teams have to look out for.
Yeah.
But that's about all that we have really. So for this episode, and we'll be back again before the Cowboys take on the Broncos to go into a lot more detail for that game. It's going to be the Cowboys' first matchup against the draft selection that we initially wanted them to take, Patrick Surtain. So we're excited to kind of predict how he's going to do against the Cowboys this upcoming week. But that's going to be for Friday or potentially Saturday. And we will see you guys then. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll talk to you guys later. Go Cowboys.
Yeah, good Cowboys. Have a good rest of your week.